Welcome to Slow American English, the podcast for learners of American English. I'm your host, Karen Tolliver. This is episode number 70, Seattle, Washington. Before we begin, here are 3 important items. 1. Buy Slow American English workbooks now on Amazon. Teachers and students can use all the workbooks either with the podcast or without it. There are pre-planned lessons for each episode for listening, reading, speaking, and writing skills. Get yours today. 2. Many thanks to my Patreon patrons for your monthly contributions that keep the podcast going. You help pay for web hosting and other expenses. Without you, I could not produce this free podcast for English learners all over the world. If you are not yet a patron, please visit patreon.com/slowamericanenglish and become one today. 3. Subscribe to the podcast website at slowamericanenglish.net. There are free transcripts plus links to become a patron and to buy workbooks. Follow me on social media from the website too. Now for the podcast. Seattle is the largest American city in the Pacific Northwest region of the U.S. It is so far north that Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, is only about 110 miles away. It is also so far west that it lies on an inlet of the Pacific Ocean. The inlet is called Puget Sound, which contains lots of islands and lies to the west of the city. To the east is Lake Washington. Beyond both bodies of water are large mountain ranges. You can see Mount Rainier from Seattle, standing 14,411 feet above sea level. Seattle has a temperate climate, and there is a saying that it is always raining there. There are only about 60 full days of sunshine in Seattle per year, and it is cloudy most of the time. Many people believe Seattle's suicide rate is high because of the depressing weather. But Seattle is a thriving, prosperous city with a lively arts and business culture. Among the big corporations who have headquarters in Seattle are Amazon, Boeing, Microsoft, and Starbucks. Starbucks was founded there in 1971, and I have actually visited the first Starbucks cafe there. Next to Starbucks is the famous Pike Place Market, a large outdoor market where you can buy farm produce, flowers, crafts, cooked food, and fresh fish. The Pike Place fishmongers, or shops that sell fish, are famous for throwing fish. If someone buys a fish, one of the workers throws it to another worker who then wraps it up for the customer. Sometimes the fish fly over the tourists' heads. Seattle was founded in 1851 in the territory of Washington and named after a Native American chief who helped the settlers. Washington did not become a state until 1889. Seattle has abundant natural resources like lumber, coal, and fishing. It has always been a very important port, especially when gold was discovered in Alaska and Canada in 1897. Along with international shipping, it was the endpoint of main railroad lines coming from the eastern part of the U.S. Trade was a big moneymaker in Seattle's history. Seattle is built on many high hills. After the Great Seattle Fire in 1889, the city was quickly rebuilt. Before rebuilding downtown, tops of hills were washed away with high-pressure water blasts to make them easier to build on. This process was called regrading. The new buildings were of fireproof materials like brick and steel. Tourists like to visit the famous Space Needle Tower landmark in Seattle. It was built in 1962 as part of the World's Fair and rises 582 feet. You can take the elevators to the top to see wonderful views. Language note: the phrase Skid Row in American English means a run-down, poor area. To be on Skid Row means you are poor and have terrible living conditions and no chance for things to improve. Some linguists believe this phrase originated in Seattle. There is a road, Yesler Way, that was called Skid Road when lumber operations used the road to slide logs down to a sawmill near the water. Skid means to slide slowly and a little out of control, so the logs were skidded down the hill. Later, this area was home to the very poor. That's why some people believe Skid Row came from the name of Skid Road. Today, the area is a historic district. That's the podcast for this time. Slow American English is written and produced by Karen Tolliver. Copyright 2020, all rights reserved. For a free transcript and to subscribe to the podcast, visit slowamericanenglish.net. You can also subscribe with any podcast feed reader. Theme music is written and performed by S.W. Campbell and used by permission. Find more music by this artist at soundclick.com/SWCAMPBELL. This has been Slow American English. I'm Karen Tolliver. Thank you for listening.